So they say Trump keeps messing with my social issues. That's the same argument as Biden keeps messing with my social issues.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same in very, very many ways. It's the same impulse of, man, I don't like that. I would rather mind my own business, except it's from the right and from the left. I mean, that's kind of where secessionists come from, in my experience. It's that they would rather just be left alone, whether that's left alone to have abortions and transgenders, or whether that's left alone to have the 10 Commandments in a schoolhouse. I mean, it doesn't matter why they want to be left alone. the impulse to separate, it's about the self-determination, not about the position on any particular social issue.
America is divided because our powerful federal government pits red states against blue. We need to return power to the states and to the people by decentralizing. If that fails, we must be prepared for a peaceful national divorce or face a destructive civil war. Welcome to War, Divorce, or Federalism. America at a crossroads.
America keeps adding pressure to a boiling pot, and we've condemned violence on this show from day one. But we're not afraid to ask hard questions. Does the assassination of Charlie push the country toward civil conflict or toward negotiated separation that could potentially lower temperatures? Where do we go from here? In this episode, I am joined by Jason Fry, author of National Divorce, A Plan for Peace. He says he's a pacifist secessionist who says there is a way out without a single shot fired. So, Jason, welcome to War, Divorce, or Federalism.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So that's, we have a lot to unpack. You and I have been wanting to get together and talk about national divorce, about secession, about polarization in the country. And then lo and behold, last week we have the tragic event of the assassination of Charlie Kirk. What is your straightforward assessment of how this assassination shifts the national mood, and does it have any effect on this national divorce debate?
So personally, I see this as another event in a long string. You can go back a long way, but let's just start with the 2020 election. So we've had a fairly recently disputed election. We had a uninvited Capitol tour. We had several assassination attempts on Trump. Now we've had an assassination of a political figure. I believe a couple of months ago, there was an assassination of a couple of legislators from
Minnesota.
North. So as terrible as it is to see, Charlie Kirk's life go away right there on the internet. I mean, with the video available for everyone. I mean, there's nothing good about that. But I see that as another one of the same things. It's another symptom of the same dysfunction. Will it be the one? Will it be the thing that tips the scale somehow? I don't know. I mean, that's part of why we're out here having this conversation.
Yeah,
I have long believed that if we can get ahead of it with the message of peaceful negotiation, that's better than the let's take it by chance and see how it plays option.
Right. And it does seem to me, I mean, we are the temperature is so high with this incivility in the United States, the polarization, that it seems that it's just, and we've been saying on this show many times over, it seems that it's just going to take one match to ignite everything. And we don't know what it is, and whether it's going to be an assassination or whether it's going to be, collapse of the dollar or another pandemic or whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
It does seem to be that there is despite the rhetoric on maybe on both sides following Charlie's assassination as far as elevating the temperature. Overall, I think the response from Charlie Kirk's supporters, from the right at large, has been a very positive one. When you contrast that with, say, what we've seen with the Floyd,
with Michael Brown
killing.
Or George Floyd. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So the fact that there aren't cities on fire right now, 3 days afterwards, that says a little something about the culture of I don't know if you want to frame it of the right versus the left, but of at least the culture of this moment. People that are upset or challenged the most are not the ones likely to turn immediately to destruction.
Right. I mean, it's premature to say what's going to happen, and it only takes one bad apple to paint a whole group. But when I'm seeing the vigils that are taking place today and yesterday, I mean, that is in stark contrast to burning down your city and
I agree.
looting your target. It's phenomenal. So, I mentioned in your intro that you call yourself a pacifist secessionist.
Yeah.
And I did read your book over this last week, and it's mentioned in there. Can you tell us what exactly you mean by that?
Yeah. So many ways to take that. So my first thought is that I have 2 children in the military. So I say that to say that I'm very invested in let's not have a war right now, right? Because it won't be some hypothetical people that are fighting. It'll be my sons. In addition to the 2 I have I have two young boys that are 8. Uh, so again, this is very personal for me because I don't want my kids to be involved in that. I want peace for myself, but for my children, my children's children. So that's one place I come from. I am a Christian. I grew up in Churches of Christ. I have been to Bible college. I was a minister for a while. And so the pacifist piece comes a little bit from that. I mean, thou shalt not kill seems pretty straightforward. I know we have some exceptions for war and for, some things, but basic principle of maybe I shouldn't kill that guy. That's pretty clear, pretty firm. So I know that applies to me personally. I don't know how it applies to the government exactly, right? The government is a tool to punish those who do wrong, God says, Romans chapter 13. But for me personally, I can't see the good in killing lots of people. I can't see the good in a genocide. I can't see the good in whatever terrorist things. I can't see the good in people dying for nothing, foolish reasons, maybe even for good reasons. So that's where I come from. It's a basic commitment to nonviolence. The other piece is that in my day job, I am a behavior analyst. So my day job is to shape people's behavior so that they don't hurt themselves or hurt other people. Like that's my career. Hey, chill out. What can we do instead? Like that's every day. So to translate that into politics, it's not that big of a switch for me.
So in terms of secession, then I take it that there's no scenario in which you would advocate for violence or certainly killing to further the objective of seceding from the Union. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Let's flip it though. Are you justified in, if you're involved with a secession movement, you have a referendum, everything is a go, and although you and I may both think it's very unlikely, there's always discussion about, well, even Joe Biden, talked about, well, hey, if you're
going to need some F-15s, not AR-15s. Yeah,
exactly.
Or Texas Representative Gene Wu that put bombs dropping on people on Twitter for disagreeing with his politics. Yeah.
Right.
That's a real risk.
If military was involved, do you feel that the secessionists would need to necessarily stand down to abide by a pacifist philosophy? Or does the right to secession then, is that considered self-defense?
I would consider soldiers coming to tell me something to do with the threat of death if I didn't. That would be considered self-defense in my book. So I'm not convinced that, Iraq, for example, is a threat to my personal security. And so we should go blow those guys up. I am convinced, though, that a guy knocking on my door with a gun and some ill intent, that guy is a threat to my security. Libertarian non-aggression principle, I'm not super articulate in that, but that's kind of where I'm coming from. Initiating force is not okay. Responding with force to force, that is somewhat permissible.
Right.
I have acknowledged before that as a guy who de-escalates in my day job, okay, I will get killed in the first wave. I promise. Because I'll be out there, dudes, chill. Why don't we talk about this? And then some guy's going to shoot me, and that'll be the end of it, right?
You're gonna be the guy with the daisy.
About myself. No daisies, but I'll step out in the middle and say, whoa, and then I'll die. That's my lot in life. That's just what I predict. I hope I'm wrong.
There are some on the right suggesting that this is Civil War time. How do you think that the secessionist movement, or again, in very general terms, the right, how does it inoculate itself against that type of rhetoric which lends itself to violence?
So you say secessionist movement as if we were somehow unified or or the same across the board. I would say there are secession movements in 8 or 10 states, including, though, California. So you had Marcus on, a friend of mine. So the idea that maybe we should split is not a right-wing idea or a left-wing idea. It's simply the response to an observation that we're pretty dadgum split already. That's my talking point. Not that we should split or not. I'm saying we're divided already. And if we're already headed down this road, that the responsible thing to do is negotiate an exit strategy. I say in the book that the way to start a war is to seize some territory and say, this one's mine. That's exactly what happened at Fort Sumner. That's how Iraq did with Kuwait, if you recall. I mean, that basic movement of, I'm going to get my guns and we're going to keep you out because this one's mine. That's how you start a war. Every time. Voting, on the other hand, does not typically result in a war. This seems my experience, right? Granted, they have voted sometimes that has resulted in war, but in general, we take for as a fundamental principle that the right of the people to vote their will and then execute that is fundamental. And so most of us who come from various secession movements would agree that the way out is not with tanks or F-15s, but rather with ballot boxes and with the established legal procedures that already exist. So that would be my take. So yes, I am mistrustful, I guess, that the federal government might escalate to violence. But if they do, it's going to be in response to voting. It's not going to be in response to me with a weapon. That clearly puts them in the position of Russia versus Ukraine or China versus the world. They are trying to squash a democratic movement that's based on nothing but voting. That's where the secessionists are coming from. So every time, and I'm passionate about division, I really am. But every time somebody says civil war, I cringe because it's my kids. Right? And I know we can get there. I have faith we can get there without any of that.
Yeah. And you're absolutely right. It shouldn't be posed as right-left. There are secession movements. In the scenario of the question, of course, it's the person who's angered by Charlie's assassination. But you're right. And it's the pro-secessionists, whether left or right, or whether Texit or Calexit, who need to, I guess, find that the narrative to calm the temperature from people who want to secede, and people who want to secede recognize the divide and not then cross over to becoming violent or advocating for outright civil war. But it could be, I mean, when people at large become inflamed with passion, it's pretty hard to stop them. What would you say then? Because based on your vocation and your day job, it's to de-escalate. So what do you say to, in this case, Charlie's supporters who are more impassioned and likely seemingly prone to raising the temperature or even advocating violence, as little as we may see that?
So if you fight fire with fire, more things end up burned. It's just the basic way it works. And so for those of us who are not interested in that, Charlie, I'm not super familiar with his work. I did a little bit of research just because, I mean, it's clearly a important moment in history somehow. Don't know yet. It's too soon. And I'd seen a few of his videos. My point is that he advocated for political processes, I think, right? He wasn't one that says, and we should start over with America, or we should vote harder even, I don't think. I think he was mostly about you, dude. You try to be a better person. You try to use some reasonable logic on yourself. That collectively makes us all better. That's my understanding of his work, not as an expert. But that's the way I take it.
Yeah,
that's
he very much wanted people to be able to have their voice heard, to have debate, and use reason to come to common sense solutions and to find common ground. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. But he had very strong positions politically or philosophically, and
so far, I've said the pioneers get the arrows. They killed the Son of God for being too much of a prophet, right? I don't equate Charlie Kirk with Jesus here, but the cultural principle is the same. That if you're going to stick out ahead of people and say firm things, there's some risk to that. Nobody deserves that kind of treatment, but there is some risk. So stop there.
What do you think overall? Does Charlie's assassination or any event like this, it highlights the difference we have in two sides. So does this accelerate a timeline for a possible secessionist movement?
I think it probably does. As a secessionist, I would say we've been on that timeline since the last secession movement, probably. But it's definitely accelerated in the 20th. The way that I would frame this is this way. You think about prohibition, okay, in the 20s. One group of people got together and said, I think alcohol is bad. Let's make it the law that you can't do that. And then they figured out that was a bad idea and they undid it. And then by the 50s, it was, I think segregation is bad. Let's make a law and undo that. That was straight in the face of some people's sincerely held cultural beliefs. The government stepped in and said, nope, this one, we're making the law this way. You could say the same with feminism. You could say the same with COVID precautions. Okay. I'm not afraid of getting sick, but you are. And there's this thing. So the law is going to decide how you're going to respond to that. So that impulse to legislate social issues is the root of secession. That's where it is to me. Bleeding Kansas. Have you heard of Bleeding Kansas? So in the 10 years of chaos prior to the Civil War in Kansas, there were about 250 murders. Yeah, that's a lot over slavery. Like it was Charlie Kirk cranked to 250, right? I mean, it was people were literally killing their neighbors over this issue. Okay, 250 is a lot in a decade. But then the government got involved in trying to solve that problem. And they killed 650,000 more people to solve the problem. So as a pacifist kind of guy, it's like, which is worse? 10 years of chaos and killing a couple hundred people, or the government fixing it and killing them 500,000?
Right.
That's kind of where I see that we are. The government continues to insert itself into social issues, continues to use force to maintain these issues one way or another. I don't care what your position on any of those issues is. The reason I think secession has been coming is because the government steps in when they should step out.
Right. Yeah. It's when a people believe not only that their government has a loss of legitimacy, but when they believe that that government is taking away their way of life or the things they believe in, their culture. And I think that's in large part what you were saying with some of the social decisions that have been made. It certainly far and away underscores the Calexit movement, having the
for sure
interview with Mr. Evans, and Texit as well. That aspect, going back to Calexit and being impassioned, do you, and you're intimately involved with Texit, correct?
Have been, yes.
Have been. Do you find that that the two movements are very, very similar, even though the philosophies are diametrically opposed? Or do you see that functionally there's very different? When I say functionally, I don't mean the steps taken like referendum. I mean, for instance, I was saying this very strong cultural, we hate them, they hate us, that Calexit has. I didn't kind of get that from Daniel Miller with Texit. What are your thoughts there? Similarities or differences between the movements?
Part of the genius of Daniel's approach, honestly, is that it's not about the people. It's about the structure, right? So Texit movement in particular, let's say I'm with those guys. You see my flag back there. The idea is not that those Californians are bad. It's that the federal government structure has outlived its usefulness. It's outkicked its coverage into more things than it should be. It doesn't actually serve the people that it purports to serve. The Calexit people can say the same thing, right? So they say Trump keeps messing with my social issues. That's the same argument as Biden keeps messing with my social issues, right? It's the same in very, very many ways. It's the same impulse of, man, I don't like that. I would rather mind my own business, except it's from the right and from the left. I mean, that's kind of where secessionists come from, in my experience. It's that they would rather just be left alone, whether that's left alone to, have abortions and transgenders, or whether that's left alone to have the 10 Commandments in a schoolhouse. I mean, it doesn't matter why they want to be left alone. the impulse to separate is about the self-determination, not about the position on any particular social issue.
Yeah. And I thought Marcus Ruiz Evans from Calexit really brought it home with a hammer, because he said America at large really should be supporting the secessionist movement in California because they just want to go their own way. And that's it. But the people in California who are opposed to the secession, they want to gain control of the government of DC, of the United States, and they want to impose on you the things like the transgenderism and all of the progressive thing. I mean, it's so simple, but there you have it. They want control. And that's what the whole problem is jockeying for control of DC.
Correct.
So you can, and for many, it's not that they want to control people, but they want to ensure that they can maintain their way of life. And the only way to do that with our top-down, one-size-fits-all central government is to have it at that level, which then does inadvertently, whether intentional or not, control other people.
So let's shift a little to talking about worldwide, right? So I want to make an argument here that'll get us in a different way. So right now we have 350 million people in a country, in a union that covers literally a whole continent. How many other continents have that? Australia, but there's not 350 million people there.
Yeah, right.
Nobody says all the people in Europe, they must be one country for the world to be a better place. For else, there must be one united African country. No, there's even disunited African countries within them, their tiny selves, right? And that's just the way the world is. It's really only in America that we say you're some kind of a disloyal or some kind of a weirdo or political extremist to say, maybe I would like a smaller government now. Thank you very much. Right? Because the rest of the world has that, except us. That's about it. You know, the United States didn't go bonkers when Russia fell apart. They were silently cheering. And yet, if they think about the same thing happening to us, they go bonkers, right? It's acceptable over there, but it's not acceptable over here. Yeah. Monaco can exist. Luxembourg can exist as an independent country, but Texas can't because why? Right? Like it's a completely illogical position when you think about the global state of things.
Oh, yeah, 100%. You know, I was at a meeting, Club for Growth fellows meeting a year ago, and we had a great talk, and it was about how we've sort of lost our way as a republic. And in the discussion, although not intentionally talking about dissolution of the United States or national divorce, but there was a lot of pointing out statistics and recognizing that there is increased freedom with smaller nations, that it's very difficult to have a functioning, good for humanity republic when the central government is so not only so powerful but so far away geographically and culturally from you. And so at the end of the talk, which was a wonderful talk, I raised my hand and said, does this not then suggest we should have a good, intellectually rigorous discussion about national divorce? And there were gasps, in the audience.
Yeah, it's like they won't close the loop. They'll leave it open. They'll set it up for you, and then it melts their brain too.
It's a very big leap for. I mean, it is a big leap, not just for certain people. It's a big leap because we love what America stands for, what it is.
Right.
To be America. We love Western culture. We love freedom. And it seems as though we're spitting in the face of all of that to suggest that perhaps we would be better off with some different state lines or some, whatever it might be. It's a big leap. But I think that crazy divide to traverse is probably becoming narrower as we keep talking about it.
It definitely is.
With your book and others and you, Buckley and McMacken, really, and others too that I've read, really point out it's pretty straightforward, very simple. If you take yourself emotionally out of it, to recognize how realistic it is that you would have a freer society if we were a smaller society.
So I lean pretty heavy on Buckley and McMakin both. So Buckley's argument is from a social perspective, right? That if we were in more homogenous groups, the pressure or the control over social issues goes down. So that's Marcus Evans right there in a nutshell, right? Is I don't want the government telling me I can and can't, support my transgender neighbor. That's the same thing in Texas. We like babies. We don't want to kill them just because they're not out yet, right?
Right.
That, in general. And people get very, very stirred up about all of those issues. But the point comes down to, if we could self-sort on those issues, things would be better. I don't have to care what they do in California. California doesn't have to care what I do in Texas. Right now, when we're all crammed under one overreaching giant behemoth of a government, we have to care because it's the other big guys can take over and then they will rule and they will have it their way. How do I know this? Because that's the way it's been my entire lifetime. We flip flap back and forth between political parties. And now Congress is so dysfunctional that they don't even ever pass anything except for omnibus things that fund themselves. The flip flopping comes from executive orders from both sides, right? So we can't effectively legislate, we can't effectively govern. So we'll just change the way we interpret the rules now.
Yeah.
Is all it's become. To me, the ability to self-sort does away with some of that. I'm only negotiating with Austin and Houston and Dallas and West Texas to try to figure out what kind of culture we want here. I don't have to ask California or New York or New Hampshire or North Dakota. Just do as we see fit a little bit.
Yeah. You brought up Austin and Dallas. Let's take a look at that for just a second.
Yeah.
There was a strong and someday I expect I'll have Marcus back on, and I want to discuss with him further. He's adamantly opposed to allowing the northern counties, Jefferson, to break away, to secede from California prior to or after a California secession. And I question whether maybe there's a certain level of hypocrisy in that, and I'm sure he's going to be up for debate next time we can talk. How do you feel about the Austin Dallas situation? Do you think there could in your magical world, Texas secedes? When I say magical, I don't mean to sound
I understand what you mean.
dismissing, but I mean you have control.
Yeah, if it were perfect, how would I do it? Yeah, I get it.
So do you give them municipal autonomy? Do you say you are participants in this now, Texas as a country?
I see a lot of ways it could go.
Okay.
One challenge that we have in every state in the United States is that our politicians are trying out like they're the JV, trying to get to some varsity position in the federal. If you ask a politician to sign a pledge to be Texas first, they will balk. How do I know this? Because we've asked them all.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll say, well, we can't do that. It's like, well, you represent Texas in Texas, like you're a Texas state representative. You don't even represent America. You represent Texas. Why can you not say I represent Texas first? So that to start with, you've got politicians whose goal is to get a bigger job somewhere else and move up the chain. Yes. So when you throw that out, okay, when Greg Abbott has no chance of becoming the president of some other country, right? When Ken Paxton has no chance of being in some other country's Senate, right? When it's nothing but me and my neighbors, even if it's 27 million of us, when it's local control to a smaller level, that solves some of that problem. Okay, I believe, again, maybe naive, maybe not, but I believe that part of the reason that Texas is so polarized is because we pander to the federal that empowers the other side. Okay, there has not been a competitive election in Texas in a long time, in spite of lots and lots and lots of out-of-state money trying to prop up the Democrat side.
Mm-hmm.
If there were no out-of-state money, you'd have never heard of Beto O'Rourke if it crossed anybody's mind. It was all financed out-of-state. So it's all that to say, when our leaders are not pandering to someone else, they have to deal with what they're given. I feel more confident that I can make a deal with Austin or Houston if that's all that's on the table, right? Than I can if there's outside influence. Sure. We throw a big old hissy fit if we feel like Russia is interfering in our elections. But Texas lets California interfere in our elections, right? Mm-hmm. So how's that any different? That's my answer to that, is that when it comes down to it, if it's me and my neighbors negotiating in good faith to try to solve what's best for us, not what's best for the country or the nation or 50 other entities, but what's best for me and my family and you and your family, me and my neighborhood and you and your neighborhood, my city and your city. Right? I think that's how we get there. That may end up being sort of federalist. It may end up being sort of autonomous, like you were saying. One awesome thing, one exciting thing about secession, about starting over, is that you're under no obligation at all to do it the same way, right? Yep. So the United States has proven itself fiscally irresponsible. Understatement and a half, right? How many trillions are we at now?
37.
40. Yeah. It's unsustainable. We have been at war our entire existence, basically. Right. So
yeah,
you can rattle off in the last century. You've got World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, first Gulf War, second Gulf War, war on terror. Now we're funding Ukraine even though we're not fighting. Right. We're funding Israel even though we're not fighting. We've never not blown up other people on the other side of the world. Okay, so could an independent Texas, are we obligated to spend 4% of GDP on defense, which is really offense? I don't think so.
Right. No.
There's no reason to.
Sure.
Are we obligated to make laws in favor of or against any particular social issue? No, we're not. Part of the things that beauty of a new opportunity is that you get to start over with a new set of rules. Gives us an opportunity to build a system where Austin and Dallas and Houston and Lubbock can serve each other and get along, right? Lubbock makes lots of cotton. Austin makes lots of computers. Guess what? They're both important. What if we just didn't fight over stupid stuff and focused on helping each other out with the stuff that we provide, right?
Yep.
Again,
when you were mentioning about the counties or Dallas, Houston, Austin, one of the things that came to my mind is that we're starting to go under some self-sorting, right? People are moving to the States and so forth.
That's good.
But yeah, I agree. But a lot of it is maybe superficial level economics, that's, hey, it's a little bit better tax environment. It's a little bit better, this, that, or the other thing. Cost of living is slightly better, housing slightly better, whatever it might be. But if Texas were to break away, if California were to break away, you're not going to have people, I think, you'll have them to a much lesser degree if they have a political philosophy that is different than the vast majority of the people in the state that seceded. They're not going to go there for a nice little difference from a tax environment or a regulatory environment. They're going to recognize this is different. And so I think that states that are seceding or that would eventually be successful in seceding will become less purple to whatever degree they're purple to start with.
Yeah, I mean, that's a piece of it. I mean, if you say, I would like to be different than you, then you're going to attract the people that want to be the same as you. I mean, I already know political refugees in Texas. I know people from New York who have moved here because it was too New York up there. I know people from Northern California that have moved here because it was too much dominated by San Diego and San Francisco. The self-sorting always occurs. It will accelerate, I believe, as things continue to polarize, especially now we've turned a new corner that I had not anticipated, hadn't seen. When the legislatures started more overtly gerrymandering, right?
Yes.
So Texas just recently redistricted in such a way that it gave itself 5 more likely Republican seats. California then immediately did the opposite and redistricted itself in such a way that it gave some more Democrat seats. All that is self-sorting. All that is saying, we're mostly one way and our representation doesn't quite match that. Now, they will flip it again next month when somebody else is in charge because the whole system's dirty. But the impulse, though, the impulse is right. Sure. What if our representatives actually represented people as a whole? Maybe there's only 3 big cities that dominate. So maybe they only get 3 big office holders. I don't know. Again, I'm not a political analyst in that sense of the word, but
yeah,
I believe that gerrymandering is incorrect. It's a bad use of power, and at the same time, it's the reality right now. The sides are consolidating. They're using the levers of power to entrench the divide. I see that as a step towards dissolution, honestly. I'm okay with that, obviously.
I agree with you 100%. I think this has the gerrymandering question and Texas bringing it right out and President Trump bringing it right out in the open, which California has already been doing, and Illinois, for example.
Every state does that.
Every state does it to some degree. You see these.
But to
these
do it for
districts.
overtly overt reasons of urgency, right? We screw with this every 10 years and we just kind of wink that we're not screwing with it.
Yes.
That's bad. But let's fix it in the middle so that we can make it more our way. That's even worse, clearly.
Agreed. I think that those redistricting moves that are happening midterm or mid-decennial census are going to further this idea of national divorce
absolutely.
or secession
Absolutely.
so much further than a lot of things we might typically think about. If we didn't have such a strong central government in DC that controls everything, we wouldn't care so much if Texas had 5 more Republicans instead of Dems, or California
Correct.
had 5 more
Correct.
Dems instead of Republicans, because they don't do that much that controls us in a true federal system, the way the founders envisioned. Right.
Which we are a long, long way from.
Yeah.
Again, we could go off on that angle, but I think most of the people that would listen to a podcast like this already agree with us that federalism died in 1865. When it comes down to, you want to leave? No, you can't. I'm going to kick your ass. Okay, I beat you. You can't leave anymore. Right? Federalism died that day. We can try. We can keep doing nullification. We can keep doing laws that are kind of the opposite. Interstate commerce is the clause by which the government has claimed way, way, way more than it has jurisdiction over, in my mind, or in the Constitution. So there are states like, I saw one in New Hampshire today, where there's a bill in New Hampshire to say that processed and sold only in New Hampshire is not subject to FDA meat pack. I like that. Guess what? Texas did the same thing with silencers, with suppressors.
Yes. Yeah.
There are states probably that will do that with machine guns if they have not already, to directly legislatively say, forget you. You're out of line, feds.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to do it differently. Come and take it out of court. I see that as progress, honestly, because it's using the existing legal processes to challenge. I see that as a positive way forward every time some state does that. And I don't care if California does it. I don't care if California wants to ban lead or gasoline or, okay, fine. Knock yourself out over there, man.
Yep.
You can have all the electric cars you want. I don't want you screwing with my pickup truck, because you can't tow a bass boat with an electric car. but you see where I'm coming from. Any state that wants to step out is federalism to me. Where we run into trouble is when those states then try to leverage their power to make it their way in every other state.
Exactly. And I love the idea. I think that if we had a true federal system, 50 sovereign states, you probably wouldn't need, or maybe Texas would be the single outlier. But generally speaking, I don't think there'd be much interest in secession movements, because effectively you're a sovereign state already in a true federal system.
Correct.
Yeah, it's and so if we could get back to that system,
you can look Britain leaving the Federation of the European Union. There's still some cultural impulse sometimes to say, no, y'all are still too big. I'm out, even when it's federated.
Right.
Exactly. We're long past that point. The United States, where the Federation has much more control.
That Brexit and Nigel Farage, and that was such a wonderful thing.
One thing that's great about that to me is that nobody died.
Right.
Right. They did it without a war. Maybe that's possible. Right. So the day Brexit passed, 2016, right? Something like that. I was at the
sounds right.
18, one of those, long time ago. I was at the dinner table with my sons that are now in the military, and I said, guys, you don't know what this means. This means that Texas is going to be an independent country. So I believe that, because if a major nation can say, nah, I'm out, and the world can say, that's crazy, but they still let them out, and there's not a war, hot dog, we're winning. We're moving the right direction.
Yeah, exactly.
That's kind of the way I look at it.
And you're able to say that despite all of the dire warnings that the world as they knew it was going to end,
not end.
They're great. They're fine. I don't know exactly what GDP statistics are, but I do know.
Even if they weren't, right? Like we let our kids go off to college, and they do dumb stuff, just like we did when we went to college. Like, they're famous for like sitting on lawn chairs and card tables and cardboard boxes, not having any furniture, for sitting on a couch they found in an alley. Don't say those are dumb choices. You can no longer be independent.
Right.
We expect some hiccups. We expect some transition. We expect some ridiculousness. We expect some mistakes out of our own children when we send them out to be independent.
Mm-hmm.
Why in the world would we expect that a new nation would suddenly be firing on all cylinders and, a major player in the world power struggle? Why? We don't expect that anywhere else. It's irrational to think, in my mind, that, Britain, 2 weeks post-Brexit, should be strong and able and running.
Yeah,
It's irrational in my
exactly.
mind to think that an independent Texas, 6 months post referendum, is going to be like right up there with England on the world powers list.
Yep.
It's just not practical.
And
We don't
I
expect
really
that
like
anywhere else except in politics.
exactly. I really like you brought that up in your book, and it's just so simple. It's like, yeah, we're going to make some mistakes. There are going to be hiccups, as you say.
Absolutely.
We're not denying that, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't pursue our sovereignty. I
Yeah,
like that
for
very
sure,
much. Yeah.
for sure. You know, because that's the first place people go is what about Social Security? I'll bring it up because everybody brings it up immediately, always anyway, right? That's the first question that you always get when you talk about secession. What about Social Security? My answer to that usually is for one, do you believe, young man, that Social Security will be solvent when you have earned it, when you are entitled to it? Right? About every decade, they come out and say, "Oh, this whole thing's falling apart in another two decades." Right? And they keep kicking it down the road by borrowing more money 37 trillion times.
Yeah.
Right? But
hmm
we already understand that it is not possible for Social Security to exist as it currently does. Number one. So when you say, "What about my Social Security?" You're not going to get it anyway. Okay. But the other
Right.
argument is that if I earn Social Security and then move to Canada, what do I get?
You still
Social
get it.
Security,
hmm
right?
Yep.
If I pay into the system and I become entitled to these benefits and I move to Venezuela or Costa Rica or New Zealand, I'm entitled to those benefits. Why in the world would it be any different if I moved to Texas as an independent country? In order for Social Security to be off the table, it would require the federal government to go back on its own word.
hmm
Do I trust them? No, I don't trust them. They might. They might screw us over. They really might. But they have obligated themselves to these payments. I don't think that changes based on your proximity to their borders. It doesn't right now. So I don't
Right.
understand why it would later. Number one, you're not going to get it anyway because it's insolvent. But number two, even if it was, there's a precedent that they tend to pay out what you are, quote, entitled to, regardless of where you live.
Right. Yeah. You're the great return on your money that
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
yeah, you're entitled to that. But yeah, I think it's having those types of discussions so important. We talked about the idea of a true federal system would be great, that nullification is all great. And it could happen, like you say, with
It could.
Brexit.
We're seeing steps in those directions.
Right. My concern though is you're going to need a few successive presidencies, Congresses, you're going to need states coming together and really doing the nullification or the interposition
Mm-hmm.
and anti-commandeering stuff consistently. And
Right. So
I'm a bit worried, that's just not going to happen. If that's extremely unlikely, thank God we're talking about and planning for national divorce or secession.
So the way I put it in the book is that there has never really been a day when the country said, "Let me elect this other guy that I really don't like as much. Doesn't really stand what I want for. I'm going to vote for him." No,
Mhm.
our whole national history has been, "I'm going to send my best guy, the one that represents me the most, that'll fight the hardest for nothing but me. I'm going to send that guy up there." Right? We have tried that for 250 whatever years, right? And it has gotten us to exactly this point. There's an axiom in counseling that if you do what you do, you get what you got. Do what
Okay.
you've always done, you get what you always got. The other
Mhm.
way to frame that is if nothing changes, then nothing changes. You cannot generate change without changing something. So all that to say, I think we have proven with history that voting in the right people doesn't somehow solve that problem. Like, am I any better than my ancestors at voting or picking candidates? Probably not. I mean, there's no statistical reason why I should be.
Yeah.
So why would I expect then that if we just got the right political majority, we could secede or we could federalize again, or if we just got the political majority.
Mhm.
Golly, getting the political majority has been the strategy the whole daggum time. Hadn't worked yet. I don't understand why it would. So, and that's part of where I come from, of why I advocate for something besides a constitutional convention or federalist kind of policies or the nullification kind of laws that I like them. Just don't see that as the long game answer, right? Because
Yeah.
we're just trying to do the same things over and over again and expecting a different.
Can't argue with that. Would you what would you liken Texit to most closely? Would it be a Brexit, or would it be the efforts of Scotland leaving Great Britain, Quebec leaving Canada? I guess now Alberta probably would be
Mm-hmm.
closer, trying to leave,
Mm-hmm.
or the successful breakup of Czechoslovakia.
I would say that they are all branches of the same tree. It's the same impulse, different places. Again, Scotland is the left trying to leave the right. Alberta is the right trying to leave the left. I don't care. I don't care which side of the spectrum you are. The impulse of we might be better off without those guys. Right. I think that's where it's at. That's where it's at. Czechoslovakia is an interesting case study because they proved that they could also do that without war. Major thing. They call that the Velvet Divorce, if I recall.
Yes. Yes.
It's like, that's a pretty daggum smooth process. I like that name. That's cool. um,
Right.
so it can be done. There's that one. There's Britain. Another way to look at it. Man, I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head. I'm terrible at quoting. But if you look at the number of countries that exist right now compared to the number of countries that existed at the end of World War II, I think the number is about 95 back then and 175 now. Can't quote me on that, but it's a bunch. You understand that, even without the numbers. I mean, what's that joke about? Every 5 days, somebody celebrates independence from Great Britain. Again, not the right numbers, but the point holds. Every country came from somewhere, right? And if there are more of them now than there were 100 years ago, they seceded. They came from somewhere. They didn't build new land. They didn't build new populations. They separated. So the history of the world shows us that it's possible. Now, yeah, there have been some nasty civil wars. Okay. Not saying that it's always possible and always easy. Pollyanna and I don't get along. Sometimes it's just going to suck, but it's not impossible. Nobody says those countries don't have a right to exist because they weren't here during World War II. Or
Exactly.
that's the United States argument, right? So
Right.
we've been one country since 1776, and last time y'all tried to leave, we beat you up. So now we have to be one country forever.
Yeah.
It's irrational.
It is.
There's no other place in the world that says that.
Right.
That precedent must be held for.
Yeah, and we don't even need to go into the problems with the Texas v. White Supreme Court decision.
Oh, that's so fun to tear down, but you've already done it, so we'll just leave it.
Yeah, it's
so.
But
here's the way I say it. Here's the way I say it. When we decide to leave a country, we will not call that country's Supreme Court and ask if it's okay. Okay, so an independent California should not care what some other country's Supreme Court said 150 years ago. It is just not relevant. Not one tiny dadgum bit. Independent of all the actual logical arguments that you can tear it down with. Truth is, it doesn't matter. Because if you're independent, then you're independent of that. That precedent no longer applies to you if you're an independent nation. I'm not going to ask those guys. So Texas v. White can fade off into history as far as I'm concerned.
It's a great point. It's a very good point. Don't need to ask permission from a country you're no longer part of.
Exactly.
All right. So, Jason, fantastic talking with you. I'd like to, if you can, what would you leave our viewers with, your supporters, people that are supportive of the secessionist idea, perhaps especially in light of the recent events that have increased the temperature so much?
Yeah, so I was going to go this way at the beginning and I missed it, but I'm going to come back. To me, the answer to Charlie Kirk, terrible things happening in society, or COVID lockdowns, or whatever the federal misstep is today, to me, the answer to that is to leverage your local politicians. And by local, I mean as local as you can, right? Because it takes one mayor to say, no, we ain't doing that COVID bullcrap here. It takes one Texas legislator to file a Texit bill. Been done already a few times, by the way. But it takes a coalition of Texas legislators to file a bill and get it through. It takes a coalition of voters to vote affirmatively in that referendum. So that's my answer, right? Is no matter how pissed off you get, the answer is still to use the existing processes. That's part of the fallacy, I think, or the error of 1861, honestly, is that they just said, oh, we'll do it like the conventions. We'll just make it up as we go, right? Kind of like we did in 1776, where every state just said, screw you. Oh, I'll screw you too. But they did not follow existing procedures. They didn't follow the law. They just made up a convention and said, screw you, we're out of here. can't do it that way. Well, history has proven you can't do it that way. Because the government then is entitled to respond with violence. If we do it the way we're proposing, though, where you talk to your legislators and you have a vote, you have a referendum, the referendum doesn't trigger Texit Tuesday, we're out of here, bye. The referendum triggers a negotiation. Say, in 5 years, we're an independent country. Let's solve some of these issues. Oh, and by the way, here's a list of the things that we need to resolve. Social security, currency, defense. All these issues have to be solved. They don't have to be solved day one. They have to be solved by the time you leave. Even a terrible divorce, even a bad situation in a marriage, seldom results in people just walking away and never talking again. There's always some unraveling. There's always some who gets the dog, who gets the cat. They may fight over some stuff. Sure, of course they will. There's competition for resources. But there's no expectation that you have to kill that guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't expect divorce to end in murder or divorce to end in violence. I think we should carry that same expectation to the political world. The differences are absolutely there. We are absolutely not getting along. This relationship is absolutely unsustainable. There's no expectation that should result in I get to beat them up. That's just as wrong as it would be in a marriage situation. So that's the way I would take it. Leverage your politicians, help them understand that you don't want a war, you want peace, you want to be left alone, and use the existing processes. Use things like voting. Don't buy a freaking tank. It's not going to work that way. That's the way you get blown up. Don't go buy a gun just because. What are you going to do with that? There's nothing that you could do with an AR that would tip the political scale one way or the other on a nationwide level. So don't go that way. Bad guys in the bushes, yeah, they can cause trouble. They absolutely can. They can make things worse. They don't usually make things better.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, it's very insightful from someone who is very pro Texas secession to recognize the importance of doing things right and not just, right. You don't want to, I don't know, throw the baby out with the bathwater, I guess.
Well, you don't want to kick the bear, because that bear can eat you, right? Yeah. The government, the United States has proven, and again, the Joe Biden F-15 thing, their rhetoric is there. We'll just bomb you. We kicked your ass last time. We'll do it again, right? Mm-hmm. That's already there. So that can't be the answer. That's already been a piece of the proposed solution, and that has gotten us to exactly this point. So we have to try something different.
Absolutely. All right, Jason Fry, let our viewers know where they can find you, where they can perhaps find your book. It's a great book, especially if you're just coming into this idea of what is this all about? How does it actually work? Take it away.
So national-divorce.com is my website where you can buy the book straight from me, get autographed copies. It is also on Amazon if you think Jeff Bezos needs an extra $1. But if you buy it from national-divorce.com, I can hook you up. And this book is written not necessarily as let me give you the answer to the 37 most difficult questions about secession. No, that's not my point. My point is to say the same kinds of things I've been saying tonight. This is rational. This is logical. There is a way forward that it ends in peace and not war. That's what the book is about. So if that kind of approach interests you, that's where I'm at, national-divorce.com. I'm also on X as myself, Jason K. Fry.
Perfect. All right, Jason, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Rick. Appreciate it.
You bet.